find it a shame that this game isn't better known, even within the RPG Maker community. This game has under 200 reviews, and while that is still a great achievement, I think it deserves a higher level of recognition, since it's one of the most creative works of art I've seen. The Endless Empty is an adventure RPG created by Sheader-Smith, released on November 3rd, 2018 on itch.io and Steam. After recently playing this game, I was left stunned. It was one of the best gaming experiences I've ever had. Normally after beating a game, I tend to watch video documentaries about the game to learn more about it. But I couldn't with this game because no one has made one, at least that I know of. So here's my best shot at making one. Now I might not be in the best position to make documentaries or conduct deep research, and I might not know every single detail or piece of symbolism in this game, but I'm trying my best to get more people to discover and play it, because it is in my opinion one of the best RPG Maker games, and I feel that it deserves its own documentary video thing. And if I've said anything incorrect or missed anything, please let me know in the comments. I'm sure some of you know more about this game than I do. I found the game on a Reddit post looking for indie games to play similar to Mori, another RPG Maker game that's quite popular. I found a comment recommending The Endless Empty, and upon checking out the Steam page, I instantly loved the style. It has a very abstract, weird core aesthetic, with collages of different stock photos and images, and a kind of 2000s vibe. At least that's how I interpreted it. The music in the trailer was also addictively strange and beautiful. With the game priced at around $3, I bought it. I later found out that the game is actually free on itch.io, but all donations and sales go to the Trevor Project, a non-profit organization focused on suicide prevention for LGBTQ individuals. So it is free, but if you want to support this cause, you can donate by buying it on Steam, donating on itch.io, or directly to the Trevor Project. With that said, I want to say that I'm going to be spoiling the entire game in this video. If you haven't played The Endless Empty yet, I highly recommend that you do. It's not very long, being about 5 hours long, and it is without a doubt the most beautiful game I've ever experienced. It is an RPG with turn-based combat, which I know a lot of people despise, but if you're interested in the amazing story, trippy visuals, and beautiful music, then I really recommend you play it. As I mentioned, it's free on itch.io for those who want to try it out. I installed the game without reading too many reviews or the description, and just press play. When you open the game, you see this pinkish star and a few buttons. And this groovy music. When you start, you hear these beats, with instruments fading in and turning into a complete chaos, before you see a static screen and it suddenly stops. You're told the controls of the game and jump right in. You start off in this strange white room with black stripes across the screen, playing as a creature called the Nothing. Once you enter the white door, you encounter a heart with wings, telling you that your room is at the end of the hall, the bright colored door. You can also enter another room where a person with a flower as a head says, "This room was goodbye." I can peacefully view the destruction of the universe just outside my window. If you don't know what the game is about, like I did when I was first playing, you might be confused on what this could mean. The game is essentially about someone who just died. The mind desperately attempts to form some vision of reality, and you, along with other creatures, attempt to escape the mind. In this stage of the game, you've just died, and so the destruction of the universe, or the mind, is happening outside the window. Talking to the baby gives you baby's first revolver, a weapon you can equip to increase your damage in battles. As you enter your room, you can interact with a television on the ground, showing glimpses of the life you used to live. 25 years ago, you were playing your first gig. 10 years ago, you were in a studio taking auditions when she walked in, a star, probably the same one from the main menu. 5 years ago, you were in an office with a concerned man talking to you, but you were too tired of living. By the way, I'm adding this after recording the whole script, but this character is actually called the Therapist in the game files, so I'm guessing this was his therapist before he died. He also appears later in the game and asks questions, so that's why he's a therapist. And finally, 5 minutes ago, laying in a pool of your own blood. You pull down the wallpaper and enter another area. You meet another creature, the neuron responsible for the finger that pulled the trigger. It tells us that there's a bullet in the brain, and that this area is slowly collapsing. Trigger finger, as it's called, joins your party, as are deadly corrupt thoughts that consume everything. In the next room, you encounter a battle with an insanity fragment. I'm not going to dive too deep into the battle mechanics, but they're what you can expect from a simple RPG Maker game. After defeating the creature, you start Chapter 1. The game is played out in 5 chapters, with the first 4 themed around emotions. The first chapter is called Anxiety. Trigger finger tells you that you've passed into another area of the mind. and as you walk, you can see what the residents call paradise. You also find a blue door, which acts as a save point where you can heal up, talk to your party members, and later buy items. The people in paradise all sound brainwashed, praising the city and its consumerism and capitalistic traits. You find a building labeled business with a line of people waiting for an interview. They tell you that you need a resume to apply, so you head over to the employment agency to get one. You answer some questions, which will affect the game's ending, and get your resume. You return to business for the interview. After answering some questions, the boss shows you some of their products, including a manufactured idol, a symbol of disorder, and a sledgehammer. Those are some great products. The bird guy interrupts the interview by stating there's a monster in the nearby towns. The boss, of course, tries to capitalize on this and goes to the monster. You head there yourself, but there's a total of 1 gold coin. So you take the sledgehammer and break this huge piggy bank to get the 1 coin. Meanwhile, Triggerfinger tells you that it's like you're fading back into existence the more areas you explore. And if you travel far enough, your true self could find a solution to escape. After a puzzle that took me way too long to solve, you end up in a room with another person. They want to explore the next room, but are scared you will damage it because it's been sealed for millions of years. You decide to go together, and find it coated with white crystals. It smells of lilacs, reminding you of a beautiful girl you once knew. You get crystal dust and return back. You find that the path to Utopia, the next area, is closed because of the feathers shed by the desert crows. And as we all know, crow feathers are bad luck, apparently, or they mean good luck. Whatever it is, you can't pass. You head to the Museum of Faces, where you learn that no one in this area has a real identity. You meet the owner of the museum, who is willing to sell it to you in exchange for the crystal dust you found earlier. You unlock the door to the exit and drive a truck to Utopia. Your truck ends up crashing because of some desert crows, and you find a dead zone. As you try to go the other way, it traps you, forcing you to go through it. Here's where you meet Death himself. He tells you that your body is motionless and your mind will soon follow. But he's here to give you a warning, rather than to end it right now. To travel to Utopia, where the monster is located, you must find some pure octane to power the talking car. So you find some in a burning house and drive to Utopia. Once you enter, you see this big anxiety monster. You see the boss trying to get in reach with the monster by going to the top floor. So you follow him and complete a few puzzles on the way. The boss finally speaks with the monster, which transforms into anxiety itself, explaining how they tested 1,000 models to find one that works, and you have to try yet again. Anxiety confuses you for death and fights you. After the stupidly hard fight, I'm not good at RPGs, we explain that we're in fact not deaf and ask anxiety if they could help us. They show us an exit to another realm and join our party. You enter a limo and talk to a strange man who looks just like the man from the office 5 years ago. He'll ask you a couple of questions, which affect the ending you'll get. A lot of the player's input will influence the ending and the form you'll adapt. You'll see what I mean in a second. After arriving, you find that you've changed form, just like I mentioned literally a second ago. There are 6 forms you can take, depending on what choices you made. These also determine what ending you'll get. In my playthrough, I got the businessman in this area. You walk through this corridor, similar to the one in the very beginning of the game, and you enter chapter 2, Creation. Firstly, I want to say that I absolutely adore the music of this entire chapter. Some parts are just so groovy. This person tells us that we're at the Grand Art Exhibit. There are a few buildings you can visit in this town, like Bar, Boutique, the Ghoul Spots, Arts. There's also a puzzle door, leading to the mystical forest and the castle of the creator. You search for the puzzle pieces in all the different buildings, but a butterfly guard keeps stacks and colors to ensure the creator's project reaches completion. After getting all the pieces, you fight the butterfly guard and you enter the forest. There's also this mother from the town that asks for your help finding her child, wearing a bright orange shirt. So now you've also gotta do that. After exploring a bit further, you find another door, but unlike the blue ones you've used for healing up, this one is pink. Once you enter, you begin a fight with Vision of the Endless Empty. I'm sure this fight symbolizes something, but I couldn't figure out what it's really supposed to represent. After you're done, you're left in a white void with a record player. Playing the record causes you to remember this one evening. The room smelled like lilacs, like in the other room we saw before, and also referencing the enemies you fight in the forest, lilacs. She was strumming something on her guitar, but it was an original song. It was something even better than you or anyone at the studio has ever written. They decided to record it together in the studio. I also want to add that the song in the background is my favorite track of the entire soundtrack. It's just amazing to listen to. You return to the forest and head to the next area. You see this group of people protesting against the butterfly guards about the taxing of colors. Amongst them is this kid wearing a bright orange shirt, just like the mother's lost child. We fight the butterfly guards, and as you're bringing the kid back to their mother, you notice that the colors are vanishing. You return the child and get the key to unlock the gate to the castle. Once you enter the castle, you see how it includes pieces of art in its structure. You finally meet Creation and see the masterpiece they were working on. Since Death always follows closely, Creation doesn't want you to disturb him in his final hours and leaves. As you follow him, you see 4 rooms with a core color: blue, yellow, red, and green. When you enter the next room, you can hear the star again. And once more, the smell of lilacs fills the room. You can figure out that the smell of lilacs is something that's important to the story. You fight Lonely Star, which if you damage enough turns into 4 colored stars. I'm also sure this fight stands for something, like maybe the Lonely Star could be seen as you when you're still alive, but after the star leaves you and you're left lonely. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm sure it means something. You once again recall that evening when she wrote the song, expressing how you wish you could take it into the endless empty, title reference, and hold onto it forever. She was becoming more than just a pretty face, she was becoming a star. Once the song was recorded, they became a sensation. After that, you break the chandelier from the yellow room and jump into the theater. You find the bar, and the people talk about how they were waiting for the final show from Creation. That probably won't happen. You go back and open the curtain to find Creation. He talks about how he wanted to create something important before he died, and needed every resource the mind had left, like all the colors, to do it. Creation decides to complete his final act, so you go to the bar to tell everyone to come. But once you arrive, you meet Death once again. Death is impressed by what we have achieved in this little time, but all good things must come to an end. And the outer cerebrum has to give out, which means you have to be fast to see the final act. You find another pink door, which tells us how the tours you went on felt like one big never-ending trip. Just like you wanted, except you aren't the face on the posters or the side of the tour bus. It's her. It's also revealed here that you were taking drugs at the time, which may or may not have been affecting you at this point. You enter the next room, and Creation tells us he made his final act from all the less dead memories we had of her. But Creation believes they can escape death and sacrifice us to protect his realm, and so the fight begins. The music in this fight is absolutely gorgeous, with these melancholic sounding strings almost floating through the battle. After you damage Creation enough, it takes the form of sapling, which looks like a caterpillar, playing into the whole butterfly team. After some more damage, it turns into a cocoon, before finally turning into a royal butterfly. After defeating it, you encounter Death again, but you hear her voice again. Please honey, don't be so moody. As long as I have you, as long as I have this memory, this abyss we live in won't be so lonely. This could be the song she wrote on her own from before, as it's written out like it could be one. She then asks us why we were so worried about dying, since being alive is just a pinpoint floating in an infinite empty space, which is even more frightening. We fade out and hear Creation's voice, telling us there's a way out. They apologize after the realm has been destroyed, and join the party. The exit leads us to the realm of Creation's brother, Logic. Before leaving, Triggerfinger warns that carrying too many memories may hurt us more than help, meaning you can have either Anxiety or Creation in your party. I selected Anxiety, but you can always choose another member of your party at the blue doors. And with that, you enter the limo again and answer a few more questions. Once you arrive at the next realm, you change your form again. In my playthrough, I turned into the artist, but in the playthrough I'm using as footage for this video, there's still the businessman. It doesn't impact the overall gameplay and story much, except for the ending, but I thought I should mention it. This next realm is this bluish world, covered with images resembling those you'd find in a science book. And we enter the next chapter, Logic. The music here reminds me of something you'd find in Terraria. After exploring a bit, you enter this void inside a heart. You hear Death's theme and maybe Death himself, though his name isn't mentioned here. You fight Vision of Endless Empty before getting out of the void. Further on, you see these two computer-like creatures, 0111 and 1001. They talk about sensing from the data that there are creatures from another realm. Then you find the Sphinx, who has riddles you need to answer before you can continue. After acing these questions, you see the two robots continue their search into this building, but there seems to be a problem. We cut back to our party, and after we enter the same building, we find the screen. We can log in and try to release the two. After interacting with any application, you come into a fight with Trinity. After defeating it, you meet the two computer boys, who will take us to Logic. We follow Logic to the lab because he has an experiment and requires our input. He tells us that a large part of this realm is already filled with dead zones, and they grow exponentially. We get to ask a few questions about why we're here and how long we have, which isn't long. We move to the next lab and begin the experiment. creating an artificial memory. Unlike our real one, the artificial memory should be death-proof. Logic needs a sample from two of us to provide purpose for it. We pour the drops in and are left with this. Yeah. There's still one thing left to do, and that's to test if it's durable enough to outlast us. This means we need to collect a sample of death itself. Logic suggests offering one of us as bait for death, but our party has mixed feelings about it. Eventually, Triggerfinger volunteers as a sacrifice. As you enter this blue light, the story of the star continues. By 3:17 PM, it had sold 500,000 units. By 5:46 PM the next day, it had sold 1 million. Multiple singles on the charts, songs heard on the radio each and every hour, and she was whispering each and every stanza into my ear. At 3 AM, I woke up to the earth shifting. To collect the sample, you have to first enter the skin using the key to the skin. You fight sensation, and find the key to the heart. You then enter the heart, and do the same thing until you get the key to the mind. You finally enter the mind, and fight meditation. After winning, we enter this cutscene. At 3 AM I woke. She was sitting at the end of our bed. The room smelled like lilacs, the records still on the charts, and our endless tour still on course. She says in 2 cities I'll be leaving. I have a new contract, one where I have complete control over the music. You say you need each other, but it won't help. There's a theory that every choice made splits the path of time into another universe, basically the timeline theory. But even in other universes, she ends up leaving. Your path was destined to fail from the start. In the next room, you see 2 stars and a gun. Triggerfinger senses that someone else is in the room. It's another part of death, just like before. Also, while I was editing, I found that this image in the background is actually called Star's Death in the game files. So I don't know if that's supposed to mean anything, but I wanted to mention it just in case. Triggerfinger fights pure death, but you end up joining. After a while, Logic pulls us out. You fade out and ask yourself why you can't remember her songs, your face, your name, or anything. You return to the blue door area. Triggerfinger tells you Logic is in the lab analyzing the death sample. As you test, you find that it's indeed working, but death appears again, and it won't survive. And Logic jumps in without thinking. You see that Logic has been corrupted and can't speak properly. After a fight sequence, we manage to pull Logic out. He seems to be mad at himself for jumping in, given there was only a 0% chance of survival. Logic proceeds to tell us that he knows where the bullet is, but once we arrive we see that the bullet is missing. We check the real world through the hole the bullet made, but we can't find it. Once we look far enough though, we can see Star sitting on the sofa. She tells us she got us a gift, before holding 3 revolvers. We return inside the mind, and Logic says that the blood trail doesn't belong here, and is probably from another realm. We follow the blood to the limo, and drive to the next realm. We talk with the strange man again, and arrive at our destination. We changed forms again, which means there's still hope for us. We follow the blood, and as the rooms get bloodier, we enter chapter 4, Anger. This environment is amazing, the whole world is this dark red, the music is aggressive, and I think it's been done so well. We see a newscast on the battlefield, covering the fight between the arthropods and the reptiles for the bullet. The newscast ends with a reporter saying, "Remember, the bullet is the only way to get to heaven." If you head on over to the village, you can find these people that don't want to live in these circumstances involving the war. You end up meeting this strange traveler, who tells us there's a young reptile in this village trading with the arthropods, their so-called enemies. We could find a way to the bullet with his help. We talk with the reptile farmer, and he tells us that he trades food with the arthropod, and in return he gets a jar of clean air. He doesn't even see the arthropods as enemies. He says that if you help him prepare the next meal, he'll let you food to see the bullet. So you get an animal heart from one of the random encounters, a twisted root from a tree near the citadel, and sweet salt from a flower. On your way to gather the ingredients, the news anchor interviews both reptile and arthropod citizens, showing both sides of the war. After finding all the ingredients, the reptile farmer shows you the secret tunnel where they trade. Once in the tunnel, the reptile farmer says he believes Triggerfinger is the activator. The strange traveler appears out of nowhere and explains that to access heaven, you need an activator to cast open the bullet shell. After meeting with the farmer at the citadel, we cut to a newscast, informing us that the king of arthropods is dead. When we go to the village, we only see a tint of red, and the farmer says, "My friends, my family, it's all gone." Out of nowhere, the smell of lilacs brings you here. It has been over a year since she left me, yet I find myself at each and every show. I'm losing my mind again. You are left at a weird blood-filled room. Now this might be the most tedious part of the entire game in my opinion, because there's a lot of long fights that you have to battle out. It begins with this eye, which turns into a rust monster. Then you got to another cutscene. After the show one night, I got the nerve. I would talk to her, fix whatever had happened. She was looking more beautiful than ever, yet when I approached, she stared right through me They don't even recognize my face. You find yourself in the middle of the battlefield, between the reptiles and arthropods. You choose the side to fight against. You then meet the strange traveler again, who reveals he's actually the anger emotion. You fight another enemy that's probably important to the story, but I just don't know why. We get into a conversation. Triggerfinger asks us where a bullet could be located, but anxiety has lost any hope. I think it's time to accept our death. Creation and logic seem to agree, leaving Triggerfinger empty. Then you fight tonight's broadcast, and I really don't know what these fights are supposed to mean in the story, if they are supposed to mean anything. We cut to another cutscene. It is moments like this when I find myself imagining things. Between the adverts my mind would wander. I would imagine one day she would come through my door, broken and lost, and I would love her just the same. I sometimes imagine I was a good person. Every once in a while I would hear beautiful music. I try to organize these thoughts, but they have become too unruly. I found the abyss, the endless empty. It's all in my head. I cannot stare directly into it, or I will be forced to confront each and every piece of me. I think this is one of the most beautiful cutscenes in this game, directly showing the ugly and truest part of this person, and their true thoughts. Triggerfinger, in a fit of rage, continues alone to escape. You find yourself finding another enemy, this time it's war. Halfway through the battle, you sense the smell of lilacs again, and Triggerfinger joins your party and helps you defeat War, which turns into Mars. Triggerfinger accepts that the only way we're going to get through this is together. You proceed to fight Archangel and 2 warheads, and finally you find the bullet. Anger is also there, telling us that peace is easy if one side of the war is eliminated. He lets us choose what side to aim the bullet. I think I chose reptiles in my playthrough, but in this playthrough they decide to refuse. Anger chooses to shoot it in the middle, killing both the reptiles and arthropods, but right before he shoots, a doorway appears in the bullet. It's the gate to heaven itself. Anger is confused because the path to heaven was a lie he made up himself. He feels that we deserve to die, just like the rest of the creatures in this realm, and fights us. The fight starts as a core, transforms into Vision, then Severance, Island, and then the cycle repeats itself from the core until you finally defeat it. After the fight, you hear the following. Are you still here? I thought you left. Now I need you to do something. See all this emptiness in front of us? This black hole seems to never end. It feels insurmountable, correct? Yes, what do I do? Take a deep breath, look directly into it, now sing into it. Sing as loud as you can. Something sweet, something true, something heartfelt. Ready? Yes. Okay, let's do it. And that's when we enter the final chapter, Trials of Hearts. You meet another angel, similar to the one from the very beginning of this game. It tells you that your transportation is waiting in the next room. Before you can go in, Anger joins your party. You take the limo one last time, and you talk to the strange man again. You end up in a fight with the gatekeeper. After that, you arrive in the waiting room in yet another form. When your number gets called, you meet Dev again. He explains how you made such a mess of things, and that she is waiting for you. But first, you need to shed this excess skin and show your core. You are left in this room with only a door. Opening the door, you're prompted to remove the first layer. Each layer represents one of the emotions and chapters in this game, with the first being anxiety in the capitalistic paradise. Defeating the consumer leaves you with this. What will heaven be like? Anxiety replies with, I don't know. I don't expect it will be much of a place for me. I'm the emotion that turns bad things worse. Still, I experience things all the time that must be close. The feeling after a long day of work, when you're at your wit's end. But you have to make it home, to your lover, your family, your friends. A moment where you're excited to exist. I imagine that is what it will be like. You open the second door, removing the second layer. You fight the spirit, representing creation and the art exhibit. Again, you're asked the same question. What will heaven be like? Creation replies with, I don't know. I don't expect it will be much of a place for me. I hold the complex of a god, but the hands of a mortal. All I make will fade away, yet I still make it. It's the closest I will be to divinity. The thrill of putting these mortal mechanisms in motion, a moment where you're excited to exist. I imagine that is what it will be like. The third door starts the fight with the knowledge, representing logic. What will heaven be like? Logic replies with, I don't know. I don't expect it will be much of a place for me. I'm not sure if I can believe in it. I know what is true and what is false, but I've only scratched the surface. Yet, sometimes when I find the next piece of the puzzle, the evidence all starts to make sense. I can decide on a purpose and reach it with the utmost efficiency. A moment where you're excited to exist. I imagine that is what it will be like. You open the fourth door and the grudge appears. Removing the fourth layer, you are asked the same question yet again. What will heaven be like? Anger replies with, I don't know. I don't expect it will be much of a place for me. Well, it will be better without me. Where we could finally drop all the weight, all the fear, all the hate, all the regrets. Finally, you can live without the pain. Truly a moment where you're excited to exist. I imagine that is what it will be like. And finally, there's one door left. The final layer. You start a fight with the Wandering Star, likely representing the rock star. The music in this battle is heartbreaking, perfectly capturing the feeling the player has at this point. The star itself and the background change every few seconds, showing parts of your journey, from paradise and its people from anxiety's realm, to the cracked ground on the way to utopia, to the butterfly from creation's realm, to the blue-tinted anatomy pictures from logic's realm, all the way to the red background from anger's realm, until finally, Star herself. I see you, but from a distance. Every moment I recorded, analyzed, and repeated. What was creating these emotions? I couldn't explain. Next to you, I felt so small. I knew everything about you, but you didn't recognize me. How could I live with this unresponsive love? The scent of lilacs filled the room. Hello, beautiful. That was quite a show. Are you satisfied with your performance? Wonderful. I was impressed. One last thing before we continue. If you would be so kind, I would like your heart. She talks about how throughout life your heart grows heavier and heavier, and for your final judgment, we'll measure it against this feather. You ask if you passed, if you made it, and she tells you that it's your choice. Then, like in the beginning of the game, you're told that your room is at the end of the hall. A brightly colored door. I hope you find peace. In this final area, there are several doors in the hallway. Entering the first door, you see some of the people from the first chapter, like the guy who gave you the resume and the boss. Opening the next door, you see the characters from the town on the way to Utopia. Then you've got the people in the town from the second chapter, the two computer guys from the third, the reptiles and arthropods from 4, and finally, you open the pink door. You find all of your party members, and the room seems to be going up, and then suddenly it stops. Trying to talk to anyone will leave them saying, "Open the door, I am ready." So when you're finally ready, you open the door. And that's where it ends, right there. If I'm honest, I found this a bit anticlimactic and thought there could have been a more emotional ending. But regardless of what the ending was, this game as a whole was without a doubt one of the most beautiful games I've ever experienced. And now that you've seen the whole game, I think you'd understand why. First off, the art of the game. It's this super weird aesthetic of using different images to make collages, and it's in my opinion a great creative choice. While other games may use similar art styles, this was the first one I actually played. Initially it was the main focus of the game for me, but over time I grew accustomed to it. Also, the world and maps themselves have some great designs. They never felt overly confusing and make some stunning environments. The writing of the game is also excellent. Although there are some spelling mistakes in the walkthrough, I don't remember if I saw any on my own, so they could have been fixed in an update. The main story of the game about Star is amazing, giving little hints throughout the game about this fucked up person and his obsession over this girl. Then of course, the music. I am in love with this soundtrack. I think it's a shame that it isn't on streaming services like Spotify, but you can at least download it for free on Steam. It was created by the developer himself, as well as his former bandmate Nash Allen from Sugary Sweet Machines. The soundtrack was created using a lot of different sources like MIDI instruments in a DAW, live recordings, manipulated samples, and more. The main theme sounds really nostalgic, probably because the first note isn't in tune and the rest are. Then you have songs like Victory Theme, Prayers from the Dollhouse, Beelzebub Strut, and Evening Star, which sound like this weird alternative rockish kind of thing. And the more atmospheric tracks like Gentle, Pleasant Day, Main Theme and the static version of Main Theme, Witness the Endless Empty, The Memory Viewer, which is my favorite track, also Reflection, Creation, Nowhere, and more. This whole soundtrack sounds so unique and unlike anything I've ever heard before, and I think I can say that about this whole game. Unique and unlike anything I've ever experienced before, and I'm really glad I could experience it. Also, there are 6 endings to this game, as you get these depending on the form you take when you reach the last chapter. The forms you can take are the businessman, the punk, the artist, the observer, the violence, and the nothing. The choices you make during the game change what form you take. In the playthrough I used in this video, the last form the player took was the observer, which means they got the ending with Logic's realm as the background. But depending on what form you take, you get another realm's background and different text. And that's pretty much all I've got to say for this. If even after watching this entire video, you're still interested in experiencing this game for yourself, then please download it on either itch.io or Steam. There's also a Discord server for the Endless Empty and the developer's upcoming game, A Chamber of Stars, which I recommend joining. I want to thank you guys for watching this little video. I won't be making more of these, but I just felt the need to make one for this game since I just want to show my appreciation towards it. See ya!